Hi, everyone. It's a ticket to Christ. We're talking about living courageously. And a lot of times we don't think it takes courage to actually live life. It takes courage to not just sit on the sidelines and do things that are safe, do things that don't rock the boat, or do things that satisfy our comfort level, right? And I'm not saying to run about and just be reckless, but I think that a lot of times people live too safely, too comfortably because of fear, because of faithlessness, and because of cowardice, right? For some people, discouragement. And think of the word discourage, right? You need courage. So we're looking at it so that you can self-examine and look at, okay, how can I live courageously? How can I live with victory? And one thing that comes to mind that can steal courage is when someone dies. A parent, especially a mother, and you're close to your mother, a spouse, a husband or wife, or a child, right? Or even a grandparent, depending on how close you are to that person. And for some people, I've known many situations where people can't get past the death of their mother. They can't get past the death of their child. So the death becomes like an idol, and everything that you do that's what it's measured against. For some people, they can't get past the death of a sibling because they feel guilty for living, right? Or it might be like the sibling's life is derailed, and you feel guilty for surviving, you feel guilty for living. And so the behavior of these people, or what has happened to them and how it's happened, becomes this idol. And why it becomes an idol? Because it leaves you stunted. It leaves you in a position where you can't move forward. Maybe the person died in a way that you don't have answers. Maybe it was sudden. Maybe you didn't get closure. And so you have to process all these things. But in processing them, for some people, it takes years. It's been taking years because they're not understanding that they're making that person's death an idol. Each person, every single one of us comes into this world alone, and every single one of us dies alone. And every single one of us is loved by God. And God gives each one of us that same self-awareness, right, in our own walk that we need to take responsibility of. And so sometimes people unknowingly try to take responsibility for the death of someone else, to take responsibility for their journey and path, and to take responsibility for a boundary line that is only God's to take, right? We are not God. You're not that person's God. They are not your God. And yes, they loved you, but what you're reaching for in trying to hold them up that way, that's not their role or function, right? They don't have the ability to be your God. And yes, there's a hole and you're going to miss them, but it needs to be kept in the proper context, not holding them up to this elevated level whereby you can't live out your destiny. You can't fulfill the intention God intended for you. And the decisions you make are self-destructive, or you're not living in the Lord as you should. And it doesn't mean that you don't take the time out to mourn them. But I think if it's that you're making decisions based on their death in a harmful sense, in a sense that doesn't allow you to use the talents God has given to you, in the sense that it's been years you haven't been able to move on, and everything that you do measures against that, that's unhealthy. I don't see that in the Bible, that happening. Even with Abraham, you see when Sarah died, Abraham moved on. He had Keturah and had, I think, 5 or 6 other children. So you see righteous men and women in faith living their best life, the life God intended for them to live. It doesn't mean that you don't miss that person. It doesn't mean that you don't love that person. It doesn't mean that you're not holding them in your heart. But you're not making them God, and you're not idolizing their death, and you're not making their death an idol. And so I look at Lamentations chapter 3 as a great scripture. From verse 19, remembering mine affliction and my misery, the wormwood and the gall. My soul hath them still in remembrance and is humbled in me. This I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They're new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, saith my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. The Lord is good unto them that wait for him, to the soul that seeketh him. Okay, so we can pause there. And what is jumping out at you? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? For me, what jumps out is verse 24. The Lord is my portion, saith my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. And a lot of times we're not hoping in the Lord, and the Lord isn't our portion when we're faced with the death of a loved one. Where the grief overrides reason, it overrides your ability to properly contextualize life, the meaning of life and purpose, your ability to keep the boundary lines of the roles assigned for you in God, And so I think that if this is you, yes, take the time to grieve. That's fine, the allotted time to grieve. But if it's been years and your life has gone down the drain and it's been derailed as a result of that dream, then that person's death has become an idol to you, and you're not grieving in a healthy way, because death has been here since Adam and Eve fell. It's not that you're in a unique situation. For everybody has to die, everybody will die. But God has set up a way out and a means for us to grieve and to be able to have comfort, even when we don't have all of the answers, to bring clarity and to strengthen in us a faith and trust in him. So it's a time to, it doesn't mean that you are not going to always love that person or hold them in your heart. But it means that they're not God. It means that their death should not be an idol. You shouldn't have set up this monument to them whereby your life revolves around their life. That's not healthy. Even if they lived, your life should not have revolved around their lives, right? Your life should be your life, living your life unto the Lord. And so I think that is something I think that a lot of people need to pray through. A lot of people need to think through and just really, so that you can have a healthy grief. You can grieve properly. You look throughout the scriptures, again, Abraham, you look at even when Moses died, just how they had to move forward. Joshua had to take the people forward, but it must have been very painful, right? It must have been hard to do so without Moses, because they had relied on him so much, So those are some things I think that in living life courageously, if you're faced with grief, if you're faced with losing a child, those are the things to think through and to pray through, just making sure that the death is not paralyzing you, it's not hindering you, even though maybe you might not have had all the answers, with how they died. I know when my mother died, I didn't have the closure because she wasn't talking. So I didn't know what she was thinking, what she was feeling, and didn't get a chance to have that last conversation with her in her sickness and talk anything through. Didn't have the opportunity to get closure and help in a lot of things. And so there are a lot of loose ends and unanswered questions that I just have to surrender to the Lord. So I'm not just speaking willy-nilly. I'm speaking from the position of knowing what it's like. And I loved my mother to pieces, just like anybody else loved their parent. But coming to an understanding that I am not her God. She is not my God. It's okay to grieve for her, love her. But it's also important to live out the life that God has called me to live out, to pursue his intention for my life. And so I want to encourage you to do the same thing for your life, no matter what. because your life is unique from any person. It doesn't matter how much you love them. Your life uniquely is your life. Grab a hold of it and don't allow your life to fall by the wayside or be lived in context of the life of someone else in an unhealthy way. Live in the boundary lines that God has given you to live in and to pursue it wholeheartedly, 100%, to his glory, trusting him with your dead loved one, with your loved one who's passed on, trusting him with them, with their destiny. He is God. He is good. He's merciful. His mercy is beyond anything that we can drum up. His goodness is flawless. He's holy and righteous in all his ways, and he loves them more than you could possibly ever love them. He created them, and he will fulfill every intention needed and necessary for them. So, beloved, that is it from me. We'll pick it up again tomorrow. I hope you're having a blessed day. I hope you're holding yourself in kindness and compassion, the kindness and compassion of the Lord, that the Lord himself has for you, that you're showing yourself that compassion, that grace, and grabbing a hold of the life that Jesus gave you and living it. Jesus says, I am come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. And it's not that you're not going to face loss and difficulty, trials and challenges, but reach for what Jesus has provided for you during the season and time in your life. Grab a hold of it and have an incredible victory for the Lord. God loves you. Have a great day.